We are 21st century disciples of Jesus. But the letter we are studying was written to first century Christ followers whose life experience was nothing like ours. Their society's rules, family rules, and understanding of interpersonal relationships differed immensely from ours. So let's try to understand a few things about their world in order to understand the motive behind Paul's words. Now, it's important to note that most of the Colossian believers were in Roman households. So Paul is writing to a majority of folks that held to the belief that the power of the Father was all pervasive. In the Roman world, the father represented the family before all of the family gods. As the oldest male ancestor, he had power over all of his children and grandchildren until he specifically freed them to have households of their own. That was the Roman way. And that is the culture within which Paul is writing regarding family in this letter. Before we go down a road listing all of the negatives of such a patriarchal structure, not all of it was necessarily negative. In most situations, the father would give his child money with which to conduct business. He would even assist in helping him set up the business and support him in a useful career. This structure did not have to be dictatorial, yet organized. Roman sons could participate in family councils where family matters were discussed and decided. Other family members were allowed to act freely with a portion of the assets allotted to them. In a Roman household, the husband had more power over his wife than a Jewish household. The Roman wives were granted the same status as the children. Now remember, this is the Roman hierarchy within which Paul is needing to communicate. Roman wives had no legal capacity within the family. We can't think like modern Americans. We must consider this within the context of a first century Roman. Modern Western culture did not exist to these folks. That's important to note as we look a little further. When Paul refers to slaves in Colossians 3, he is referring to the Roman system. Within this societal structure, people were coming to know and follow Christ. Paul was now in the position of balancing their existing societal rules with the gospel of Christ. Though there were laws that existed to protect slaves, some Roman slave owners were still heartless and uncaring. Paul's instructions were given to those Roman men who had a responsibility to treat all men fairly. Within that 2,000-year-old system, Paul focuses not on the legal rights of slave owners, but on the law of love as taught by Christ. These Christ-following men, who also happened to be slave owners in that Roman culture, now had a responsibility to operate under the mastery of Christ. And in some cases, that meant drastic change. This section of Paul's letter to the Colossian church deals with life at home. We will delve deeper into exactly what Paul was saying. But without looking at the historical context, we are forced to frame it in a 21st century Western mindset. That's obviously not the case. So with this understanding, we will process through the remainder of Colossians 3 as we learn to live by the book.